I
all
forgot
this
to
AI
record
and
again.
all this like text, this texture stuff, texture creation stuff, image generation.
Hmm.
Deep down, it makes me kind of feel bad for all the artists out there. You know, like it's not a
Yeah,
doing art is a very unique thing to human culture, and just to have AIs do that is very deep down it hurts. You know, I'm not an artist. I'm a programmer, but still, you know, I respect the arts, respect
yeah,
the artist. So
yeah,
I'm low key a little conflicted about all this AI generated art.
yeah. I am too, really. But it's just like it's like unfortunately too. The AI generated art, I feel like in the most goodest intentions, it should be in a way to like assist the artist. But unfortunately, that's not going to be the case for like anybody else with like maybe few other brain cells or maybe a bad bone in their body that they could think about exploiting this for themselves.
Yeah, that's just a problem with a lot of people. You know, when new tools and new technology come out, the first thing they're gonna do is try to exploit it as much as they can.
Yeah,
So that's why we're seeing all this with ChatGPT and Midjourney and all the other AI software kind of things.
yeah, and it's something that like I don't think like any of us can really prevent that from happening. As it's like it's in part of our human nature to do so, but it's also going to be up to us as well that we have to be resilient against it. Idea and
But but in the end, let's be honest, AI will never do anything perfect. I mean, yes, it'll be close, but they won't be able to do anything perfect.
mhm,
So it's gonna be interesting. Like when it comes to those AI, like those image generation stuff, you give it a prompt, and they give
mhm.
you a prompt. Yes, you can still keep asking it questions, keep refining the prompt to get what you need. But no, I feel like even though you do a lot of refined prompts, you still won't necessarily get what you need or what you
Yeah,
want.
yeah. Like there will always be like some margin of error that like at some point too you can take like whatever you were working with too and actually just send that to your artist and be like, can you create something that's like sort of similar like this, but can you refine it even more? You see, oh yeah. The more I code and the more I see these crazy ass software advancements, the more I kind of appreciate analog. I mean, yeah, it's we're gonna be yeah we're gonna be in much more interesting era at this point. Like right now with GitHub having its own co-pilot system, which I don't know how well that's going to be panning out to, since it's going to be essentially like Git is providing you the codes based on the fact that it's using its own repository of like whatever people upload on there to help generate code. I don't know. It's very much like something that I think in the gaming industry we may actually see more bigger potentials in, let's say, creating like dynamic dialogues kind of deal. So I don't think like this would have like any other application for like maybe a story or narrative driven game, but I think it makes it more compelling too for like the Western RPG styles where it's like you are the main character, Skyrim, like kind of deal, right?
Mhm.
Like I think it has more better usages when in this case you have a player that just goes up to NPCs and just talks with them. Obviously, I think right now with a lot of tools that are being uploaded, especially up to Unreal Engine now too, you can actually set parameters of what the ChatGPT can only respond in within the confines and realms of the game that you're producing. Although, how I think though that's going to be its own separate type of development where someone else is going to make like simple like tools to like help refine that process kind of deal.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, like at this point too, we're not even like at the tip of like what has a potential of. We're only seeing this like as if we're like 10 miles away from like what it actually can do.
Yeah, dude, we're literally just at the start of this AI revolution. So
Yeah,
I
like
mean, it'll help us to learn it for sure, but it's gonna be a long, long while before AI really gets anywhere.
yeah, like I have hopes for it too, but I'm also trying my best to like be cynical about everything and every one that talks like or overhypes like AI, right?
Mhm.
Like, oh man, there's so many people that If anything, my parents even talked to me that like, did you hear too that like some guy actually made money off of this thing too? I was like, I mean, all he really did was like ask the AI to give him like a business idea of how he could spend like $100 to make himself 1,000, which is about right, honestly.
Yeah. But in the end, the problem with these current AIs is, sure, you can ask it how to make $1,000 from $100, but in the end, you really it becomes a skill to know what kind of questions to ask these AIs,
Yeah, it's
because you gotta know how to ask the right questions for you to get the right answer. You can't
yeah.
just ask any question and expect like the
Mm,
answer that you need.
yeah. But yeah, on the note too, I do actually have better hope of, in this case, this type of AI on more of a dialogue system, especially like the way how our uh, KRD Quiz is also saying this. Bro, those AI generated songs crack me up though. Like the Drake singing New Jeans songs. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's also the more crazier thing too, is the fact that how well they're actually sampling and knowing how like a specific medium is using like certain tunes, vocals, and whatnot as well. I think we have better shot at this in creating like an NPC voice dialogue. Like,
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
yeah,
Just like all those president AI memes that are going around right now. That it's
yeah. I
those
love
those
those.
voices are getting very good. They're getting very good, very believable, honestly.
Yeah. And like I don't know, man. That shit is amazing. I really do hope future games are gonna have something like this too. And I think like in certain cases, do you think the like voice actors alone are gonna be like shut out from the market, or do you think there might be a bigger chance for them to actually like generate some profit into something like
I
this?
um okay, this is it's a half and half right now.
Mm,
So they could get shut out because yes, we have AIs that can just do the talking instead
mm,
of having someone pre-record a bunch of lines, pre-record a bunch of like dialogue.
mm,
The other side is that we still need the voice, the actual voice itself, not necessarily the dialogue, but we need
yeah,
some different voice.
yeah,
And
because
unless computers can generate that voice, then I'm sure that we still need people for that.
yeah, I think like voice actors alone, they won't get like shut out from this as well too. I think there is a potential of what they can do, such as the fact that like they themselves can probably still change the start. I think in most cases to give the voice actors the power they still need, they can still charge themselves for like the contract that they want to, right?
Mm.
Like let's just say for a normal voice acting gig that you would do too, you can still charge the same rate too. But in the off chance that they want to say like also we kind of want to include like your voice into like a voice generating AI bot here too, because we want to like include like a dynamic dialogue system. That is something that like up to the voice actor's prerogative that he can actually go into, or if he wants to like increase the price maybe a tad bit, but not to enough to the point where like it'll be unnegotiable kind of deal.
Mm.
I think there is going to be some things that we
No,
can do about that.
there's definitely still gonna yeah, we're still gonna need voice actors. I mean, in the end, we're replacing a lot of these jobs, but we still need some of them. Like
Yeah,
artists. We're not gonna get rid of artists. We need artists to edit all the images that the AI generates.
yeah,
Same
because
thing
like
with dialogue. We're gonna still need voice actors to maybe fix up some dialogue that the AI just can't get right for whatever reason.
yeah,
There are those type of situations that will happen.
hmm and that's something that's honestly okay at this point. It's just okay because what it is like we have to see this as like a tool and not like a actual like game changer kind of deal. Which, if anything, it is game changing for a lot of industries, but it's not like has a big impact that a lot of people may think it will be. It's actually impressive what it can do right now. But what I'm saying is like we have yet to see the full capabilities of what this can do. And this is
Mm.
something that's genuinely exciting. I feel bad too because like god damn it, we had a really good conversation like 20 minutes ago too, and I just now hit it at the 9 minute mark. God, or not nine
What
minute
are
mark.
you
It's
talking
like at
about?
the 20 minutes. I forgot at this point, but to bring you up to speed before I forgot to hit the record button, we were mostly just talking about the job market, how again from last week and like AI's role in like oversaturating the market by spamming a lot of the employers with like generated resumes that the AI makes to, and we find that the irony as some employers or some like hiring companies would scan your resumes through machines. So if anything, a machine using a machine kind of deal. So that was sort of that's like what brought us up to here now, and kind of like we got into this game development stuff too. Here's like a funny thing as well too. I would love to ask like anybody that's participating else in the chat, and also you too, Victor. What is the first game you have ever played?
Damn, bro. Damn, first game I ever played. Let me think back because I don't remember the exact games, you know. Like
Yeah.
I remember when I was young, I have an older brother, so my dad bought either it was a Nintendo 64. I think it was a Nintendo 64 because I remember distinctively him playing Donkey Kong on it.
Yeah.
And I slowly picked up on that.
Oh,
I
thank you for
don't
that,
remember
Kevin.
what else I played, but the I I cannot remember the first game that I decided to pick up and play myself.
Hmm.
I think it's just a lot of I guess it just happened. Like my brother had a PS2, I think at the time, and he had a
Hmm.
bunch of games that I just picked up one day and just started playing.
Ah, I see.
You know, he had he had the original Xbox as well. He was playing Halo with his friends, and I was watching that
Oh, okay.
as a as a what was that year? Or like a 7-year old kid at the time. I was
Hmm.
watching him and his friends play Xbox.
All right.
I was like, wow, this is cool.
All right. Don't laugh at me for this, all right?
I
The
already
first
did.
game, okay, fuck you. Anyways, the first game I ever fucking played, or at least I don't even think it's considered that too, but it started when I was like maybe 5 years old, right?
Hmm.
You remember like those screensaver stuff where like bubbles would like start coming around?
Yeah.
That's what I fucking did. On the first hand case that my cousin saw me do, like he thought I was like playing some games. He was like, "Oh shit, what are you playing?" He looks at me and I was just like on the screensaver screen popping bubbles. I'm like, I was like thinking back at him, like, "Oh my fucking god, that was my introduction, isn't it?" Uh,
That's kind of funny.
which weirdly enough kind of explains a lot of like the games that I kind of do play too. I have never genuinely liked too much about like maybe like visually intensive games or like a high intensity games too. I never that much into like a lot of Call of Duties. I'll play with like friends, but to really say I play on my own kind of deal is a bit much of a stretch. The most I would have done would have been like the Ghost Recon series or like anything that's like a very slow paced game.
Hmm.
Yeah. But it's until like then too, like I started exploring more about it too. Like, man, the games have changed a lot.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of different like genres, different styles of games nowadays. It's crazy.
Yeah, like
I remember back then life was so simple. Just watching
yeah.
my brother play Halo and stuff made me just become an FPS player at the
Mm,
time. So I
yeah,
mostly played Halo and Call of Duty
yeah,
growing up, really.
yeah. And like even then too, like yeah, I don't if anything, I feel like this way about a lot of the games too. I don't think a lot of the games that I would have been interested into. I think Victor, you were probably the first one that introduced me to like Halo.
Hmm.
Actually, like I've heard and seen people play Halo, but I haven't really like sat down and actually played it, kind of deal. Until
Yeah.
like we did like the whole legendary run, you sadistic bastard.
Yeah, man. Halo was about I think honestly what got me into Halo personally was story, not necessarily like
Hmm.
multiplayer or the gameplay. Call of
Hmm.
Duty got me into it because of the gameplay and multiplayer. But all at the same time, it barely had a story, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. I think like again too. I think that was also sort of that's like what got me more into games too is the fact that a lot of like games back then too had like some really interesting stories as well. I think like the
Mhm.
best ones too were like fuck all the Legend of Zelda games. games. That, and if anything too, if you saw like the videos too about like the people like explaining the timeline of Legend of Zelda, that shit is nuts.
Mhm, mhm.
And to put it all together with this as well too, I think us unironically starting up our own game development studio was just kind of hilarious in a way too, that we were kind of fed up, in this case, the more or less the quality of how games turned out.
Oh yeah, man. All AAA companies nowadays, bro, they just I mean, it's all just money grab nowadays. I don't
Yeah.
know, man. Like they don't everything's a buggy mess. Gameplay is not as I guess innovative as it used to be. No, it's just not fun anymore.
Yeah. And to be honest too, it's not like as if like the AAA companies are like wasting money. Some of them genuinely do, looking at 343 Studios right now.
Yeah.
Anyways, but it's like a lot of the times do, a lot of this time, game developments, especially for these AAA titles, have been growing ever such more, just because the fact that like, they're fucking big ass companies that have released like really much like top selling games, where you can unironically still say too, like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, even though it's a buggy ass mess for people to play, you cannot at least argue the fact that it still sold money, or it's still sold out on a lot of things.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's definitely I mean, it's a good sequel to the reboot of the entire Modern Warfare series.
Hmm.
And the first Modern Warfare series was very good, even though it was definitely just inspired by real life events that happened.
Hmm.
But it was a very good execution, and I think people enjoyed that a lot. So Modern Warfare 2 was definitely something that everyone's looking forward to again. And I
Yeah.
think 3 as well. I mean, I'm looking forward to the new 3 that's going to come out.
Yeah, goddamn. The fact that Shepard doesn't die in two, what the hell is going on with the story writing there then?
I no, I mean, it's a good thing Shepard doesn't die. It makes more sense. He's not
Yeah.
like he's not the bad. I mean, he is a bad guy, but not
It's like,
necessarily a bad guy. That's the problem. Like
yeah.
he was definitely just I don't know how to say it. I think he's a very normal
Hmm.
character. He
Yeah.
wasn't like evil. He was just doing what needs to be done, essentially. Just like how
Hmm.
probably like how a real U.S. general would do it, maybe.
Yeah. And if anything too, I think that's what a lot more, it's like the more surprising trend nowadays too is like a lot more people are literally wanting these companies to actually make compelling stories again, which is like at this point kind of interesting that we end up going through this route. And if
Yeah,
anything
because
too, or if anything too, we see the rise of like indie development games too, that is also like kind of, most of them are focusing on the story, or there's some gameplay aspects that they want, that most players are like missing out of it. Someone is making it to do just that.
yeah, there's always got to be a market for everything.
Yeah.
I
So,
think we've peaked when it comes to just wanting a multiplayer only game.
mhm.
Like this past decade has been nothing but multiplayer games. So
Like,
I'm glad we're starting to take a step back a little because
yeah,
playing
it
playing
does get a
only
bit tiring.
playing only multiplayer games nice and all, but you don't have a compelling story, then
There's not
eh,
really any form of incentive for you to really just like, hop onto another game that your friends are playing now.
mhm.
I think that's like something that I believe Halo did have for a while too, was the fact that a lot of people say that the multiplayer was actually really good, or others said that the campaign stories was really good. However, I want to argue about some of the Halo campaign stories after like was let go, or if anything, Bungie separated from Microsoft. Oh boy, was the story there that's something that I have issues with. This is coming from someone that recently got into Halo, and then now I am ever so mad about like all the missing like plot lines and stories that they could have gone through. That was so easy to do.
Yeah, 343. Let's be honest, they can't write a story to save their lives.
Yeah.
which is really weird because Bungie was on survival mode when they made Halo.
Yeah,
So they somehow made a coherent enough story that people liked, which is very interesting. And
yeah.
343 has full funding from Microsoft. So I'm very confused on how they cannot make a good story.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of like stories leaked out, especially like let's say Halo 5 Guardians, right? A lot of the developers when they were making the game too did not realize that they were supposed to make Master Chief the main character. Like I was like, "Wait, what do you mean you didn't know that was supposed to be the?" I hope that's not real and that's like some April Fool's gag. But
Yeah, hopefully, bro.
knowing
Like,
knowing
like they literally
343,
made a.
yeah.
Uh,
Knowing 343, they would have actually done it and they did actually they would have actually said something like that too, like, "Oh, we were supposed to make Master Chief the main character." Oh shit.
there's no way that these guys never like played a Halo game in their lives. I don't understand that.
Yeah, it's like, or at least not even play, just hearing about it kind of deal. Like you were for a lot of the developers too as well. I think this also like as much as like we could shit on 343, ooh, I will shit on Ubisoft all day
Hmm.
just because of I think things were starting to fall apart ever since Watch Dogs. I believe that's when the things started to fall apart for Ubisoft. At least when they were trying to make stuff for gamers. Because Watch Dogs, I remember like that trailer when they announced it. It looked really fucking cool, like a modern as like GTA style open world game, but in the sense that it's like in a future where you had to deal with now like like criminals that are just straight up hackers. Like that would have been such a cool story to do, but I don't think that's the story they ended up going through. And a lot of like the people will bash on the visual details. That's honestly the most easiest you can like say about it too. But that's also another disingenuous part about Ubisoft. Like they also admitted to that whenever they were developing the games too, they actually had the development team split itself to work on a E3 presentation or like game presentation to be shown and not the actual gameplay that they would have shown to us.
Hmm. Hmm.
That was something that's like kind of ass backwards of like why would you subject yourself to that? And if that were the case, if it looked like that, why not develop that?
I mean, like some companies just. I guess they have like some like they just want to generate hype. Like that's all it really is, honestly.
Yeah. And just hearing like some of the stories too about like the developers themselves, like they come out to say like they've had to work on in this case a game that they ended up having to only build this to just be used for press, right?
Hmm.
And then afterwards they go back into making the game, but they don't use any of the stuff that they created for the press kind of deal because
Yeah.
it's like it's barely functioning and it's like meant like and it's like heavily scripted to follow a streamlined path,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is like kind of like boggles my mind too. Then it's like if you really think about like the technology at the time too for like Watch Dogs to achieve it, we didn't have the hardware to achieve that now. Like if you think about like an open world with like that high level of graphic visual fidelity, that would have like blown up anybody's systems, no matter if you had like the highest end PC builds at that time.
Yeah.
So it's like Ubisoft like known for downgrading all of their tech, which is unfortunate. Honestly, like a lot of their ideas, they're really good. It's just again the execution that went behind it was very poor. Another unfortunate would have been like Assassin's Creed 3. That was also another unfortunate game.
Assassin. Oh, three. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
where you got to play
Yeah.
as a oh,
No, go ahead.
yeah, it's like you in your this case too, like you were going to play as like an assassin that was taking place in the American Civil War, or not Civil War, the Revolutionary War. My bad. There, that would have been a completely different story, or kind of bit cool if we took place in the Civil War. Anyways, in a Revolutionary War, playing as an Indian, or in this case, a Native American, my bad. And really, like, I think at that point they were trying to sell us on that too, but it's like I don't think like I was more interested in that. I was more interested in Desmond Miles, where in this case his story is gonna end up. Whereas like always the constant fight with the Templars with Desmond. And this would have been like a peak finale for his character arc. I don't remember much about this story, I'm gonna be honest with you, but all I remember is like I don't remember I felt satisfied with that ending or not.
Yeah, I don't remember too much about Assassin's Creed up to this point.
Yeah. And it's like I think as soon as like that story intrigue died is when Ubisoft kind of went into a different direction with Assassin's Creed where it became more of a action RPG kind of deal.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'll be honest too, it's really hard for me to really describe what Assassin's Creed is. Like it felt more like a adventure like stealth type of game.
Mhm.
Like I felt like that was kind of cool. Like I love some of the stealth components that they try to do for it. And also like Assassin's Creed 2 will always be my favorite just because I literally beat the whole game playthrough using nothing more than just unarmed attacks and like stealing people's weapons.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, everything up till Revelations was definitely very like Assassin's Creed as it gets.
Hmm.
I think after that, the only good Assassin's Creed in my eyes was Black Flag, even though it had really nothing to do with
Like any
assassins,
of
really.
yeah, it had nothing to do with like any of the story that was built off of that for maybe until like Assassin's Creed 3, but nobody gave a shit about that.
But three came before. Oh no, four became before three, I think, based
yeah,
on
Black
story.
yeah, Black Flag came before 3 because we're focusing on like Connor's dad
Yeah.
apparently, which is like again pretty fucking weird because at that point, I think that's when like people like Ubisoft took the note to that. Oh, maybe we should just make a game based off of this too, because Black Flag was like, even though it's not an Assassin's Creed title, like at its core, it's like a game that apparently a lot of people did enjoy in some
Mhm.
weird aspect. But
I think I just enjoyed the naval action.
yeah, and then there's like, oh my god, I hate this too. It's like also Ubisoft's direction, how they handle Tom Clancy titles and onward.
Oh yeah.
I think like something I noticed the trend of it falling off really hard would have been like, let's say Tom Clancy's like Splinter Cell Conviction, which was the Xbox 360 title. The only difference with that one was that it, even though it did have stealth mechanic components to the game too, it was more action stealth than it was like anything else. Same thing with like Ghost Recon for Future Soldiers. I love that game actually.
Mhm.
But I do think too that like the direction that Ubisoft took with a lot of their Tom Clancy titles was very much weird. Like in this case, Rainbow Six Siege. Now, I
Yeah, yeah.
I don't get me wrong. I think the game itself looks entertaining as hell to watch. Like people like expertly play it, but coming from like a Tom Clancy title, which were known to be like much more stories that had a lot more grit and realism put into it, such as like previous Tom Clancy titles, where they were notoriously meant to be like really hard just because like you're dealing with like a lot of unknowns kind of deal. Here nowadays, it gets very much interesting. I'm only bringing this up too because the fact that how much like I was hurt whenever they kind of like released their next two Ghost Recon titles, Wildlands and Breakpoint. Oh god.
Mhm.
Me and Victor have our piece about in this case which one of the two is better. I'll say Wildlands on launch is better than Breakpoint on launch. But as the years go by, Breakpoint has actually been very fun to play now due to the fact that I think Breakpoint's launch was probably the most terrible launch title of all the Ghost Recon series. which is kind of funny too because every one of them, sure, they did like as what mediocrely well. I'm pretty sure they're not like selling like titles as hard as like Call of Duties, but it wasn't like that bad. I don't think.
No, yeah, yeah. Ghost Recon. I mean, obviously, nothing competes against Call of Duty, honestly. But yeah, Breakpoint was really a shit show when it first came out. That's for sure.
Yeah. Like I believe like there was a time when we were looking at some of the updates that they were doing to the game as well. There was like a fucking 10 gig up or 10 or 20 gig update. I'm like, what the fuck is this updating? And it's like a lot of like bug problems and a lot of like visual issues, a lot of optimization problems that people had. That was just something that like, oh my god, what the fuck is this? This also doesn't help the fact too that Breakpoint itself was like perpetuating a problem that Ubisoft only saw like what was it, Tom Clancy titles, where in this case they were pushing for them to be looter shooters, which in most cases too, you could say that like it might have been a good change for Ghost Recon if it really had like a very much dynamic system that you had to be surviving off of like the lands and also like planning attacks on outposts to collect supplies, like that kind of survival realism that we saw in the
Hmm.
trailers.
Yeah.
But we got nothing like that on release. And it's also like a lot of things that Ubisoft's like expectations, or in this case, who they were marketing to, is very weird. Like even in the division titles too, a lot of people were taking it like, oh, okay, so this is like a open world survival shooter kind of deal, right? And I think a lot of it was, but it ended up being another looter shooter where it's like gear scores kind of deal, which I don't know. I don't think gear scores truly do matter in a fucking shooter game unless you're playing Borderlands. But then again, Borderlands gets away with it because of how fucking wacky that game is.
Yeah, totally. I mean, they should have kept like honestly, they should have kept like a majority of the wildland mechanics and then just moved it over to Breakpoint because I feel like that's what they essentially did. They
They
just took like the baseline and the base like wildlands and just not even up the graphics or anything. It looks completely the same,
mhm.
and they just added this looter shooter thing.
Yeah. And if anything, all the updates that we've been getting to is like they're pretty much pulling back all the looter shooter mechanics and then just making it into like Wildlands or Breakpoint is just Wildlands 2.0, but with sort of better controls, actually.
Hmm. Kind of feels the same, honestly. When I go back and forth, I don't remember. I went back to Wildlands one time, and then after playing Breakpoint, I was like, this doesn't feel any different.
Hmm. I think the only differences that I have with it too is also like how kind of bullshit like Breakpoint's AIs, they kind of just spot you even though you're driving their own vehicle. Whereas if you were playing in Wildlands, that didn't happen as often.
Yeah, no, it still happened. I'm sure it still happened,
Yeah,
but
whatever.
it would have been a very good mechanic to
Hmm.
not be detected driving their own vehicle because that should be part of the stealth mechanic. You're driving the enemy's vehicle. Like, how do they know who's in there?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, how would they know who's in there? Like, it'd be fine anyways that, like, let's just say, like, this vehicle stolen would be marked. There should be, like, some mechanic that tells you that kind of deal.
Yeah.
Because, man, it's one of those things too. I love and hate Breakpoint because I could have seen, like, so much potentials that Breakpoint could have done with, in this case, Ubisoft devs, like, last ditch effort to at least, like, they were like developing this game at least for the fans now, which was in this case Operation Motherland. That was actually the most funnest like expansion or like update that we got to play that shit in.
Hmm.
And it truly felt like you kind of or this was something that like Operation Motherland could have been something that what Breakpoint should have been, where it just feels like another Wildlands reboot, but with Breakpoint like all the aesthetics really. Like you say visually they are pretty much the same too. I think in some cases, I do think they had a different art direction for Breakpoint compared to Wildlands, in my
Mm,
opinion. But yeah, I mean, oh, damn it. I don't know. It's like it's one of those things too. I think both of those games too, and even the Division, they're missing really the Tom Clancy like storytelling narrative, where it was always about in this case like there's a lot of intrigue that was going around, where there's
mm,
like if you really think about like in Ghost Recon, like the whole notion that there's a ghost squadron that the US has and they send them out to like countries to take care of all this shit too. That in itself is fucking terrifying to think about.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, imagine in real life too. Could you imagine, if anything, if the Americans even have like more secretive squads that we don't know about, right? Like, we know in this case about Death Group, but we don't exactly know what they do due to the point that they want to keep that as a secret to protect their identities and whatnot. But imagine
Yeah,
if
yeah.
there's something that supersedes that
There
in
is. I
their
mean, there is.
yeah. Oh shit. My bad. But anyways, point being that I think there would have been such an amazing storytelling that you could have done there too. Or like it could have been in the same like realms that if you want to make it that much different too, you could have made it so that what was it? Walker, who in this case was a defected ghost member, he at this point was trying to like uproot and also show the light of like what these vile like Congress or government officials had these ghost members do to everybody. And then you yourself are unironically being tasked by these government officials to take out Walker.
Mm,
That would have been a much more compelling story about like why you're in here and why in this case this is a island is also important because this is also a made up island called Aurora. God, I fucking hate that island. I kind of miss like Bolivia, honestly.
yeah, yeah. I really don't remember why they were sent in the first place. I don't remember that part of the story.
Yeah, it's originally like they want because they knew like a coup was happening over in the Aurora region, and they kind of just sent ghost squadrons to like uh do fix it, figure this shit out for us, right?
Mm,
And lo and behold, we got ourselves in a mess where we're now in like a survival, well, not even remotely survival at this point. But I really wish there was like survival mechanics in the game.
I mean, technically, it is survival, just not in the way we want it.
Yeah, that was something again. What Ubisoft did to the division as well. A lot of people thought it was one thing when clearly it is not when it was
Mm,
launched, and it's like a lot of things that are not communicated properly to tell the fans what type of game this is supposed to be, and it really does bug me honestly.
yeah,
That
yeah.
oh man, what else? Anyways, that was just a whole talk about me like disliking Ubisoft on the way how they handled the Tom Clancy titles. I'm pretty sure there are way more games that Ubisoft have fucked up in. The only games they haven't fucked up was Just Dance,
I'm
unless
pretty
that
sure
it's
these big AAA companies have messed up plenty of games, so it's whatever, bro.
yeah. And also, I'm not even putting like indie companies as if like they're like free from fault too. No, we've seen some games that have been straight up trash.
Yeah.
God damn. But hey, we support all of our indie developers the best way we can. Oh shoot. But oh man, what else? Hold on, let me see. What else do we have anymore? But I think in general too, you see like right now with the a lot of cases, you think that this is the fall of a lot of AAA companies and the rise of indie companies. Sort of less like how the gaming industry did start off initially.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I mean, it just seems like a cycle. The AAA companies have definitely definitely been in a position where they've become complacent and now making all these terrible buggy games just to make money, right?
Hmm.
All these indie game developers are rising up. like purely out of spite for sure. I mean, they want to have good games again. They want to play good games again.
Hmm.
And with accessible game engines like Unity, Unreal, and all that, I mean, it's been a lot much easier for indie developers to create the games that they would want themselves and other people to play.
Yeah, and
But
it's mm,
you know, since it's a cycle, not to say that some of these indie game developers may become big companies one day and repeat the whole thing.
yeah. It's like it's. I think it's something that like. Do you think we're about to see like a cycle at this point for these big AAA games?
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. I think, like I said, these big companies, I don't think they're necessarily gonna fall really, but I think they will start buying out studios to make the games. No, I mean that's what they've been doing. Not really. They've been buying out studios to make games for them.
Hmm. Like, look at what's
But
happening with Square Enix right now.
yeah, but I think honestly, if maybe they can fall. Maybe if they just continue to do what they do and not really make games that people want, then yeah, then maybe they will fall, and then indie studios would then become the big AAA studios eventually, and
Yeah.
then the cycle starts all over again. It's just gonna be that.
Hmm. Because like I think from what I remember like, listening on this too, there was like a lot of like times to Ubisoft itself is at like the threat of bankruptcy or being like bought out by another bigger company. Just because right now they haven't been performing well at all for the past couple years. And it's also because
Mm,
like they were really pushing for like NFTs. My God, I don't want to get into that topic too because the fact that like, ugh, not to say like I hate the
NFTs.
NFTs. I hate how people like use like let's just say this. Me and you, we know what NFTs like what they stand for, right?
Yeah.
It's just the fact that like we hate the way how people are misusing it. In this case, exploiting like people's not enough knowledge about like this technology to really understand what it truly is.
Hmm.
Which, if anything, all it is digital ownership. Or in this case, you have ownership of a digital asset. Which, if anything, you would think that does sound kind of weird, right? But it's also due to the fact that like it's going to be an important technology piece in the first place, since we're going to be to a point as well where everything else that we're going to have is going to be on the internet anyways. It's going to be saved on there. All of our receipts, all of our house permits, everything of that such like important documents. NFTs are going to be the one to help like make sure that we know who this belongs to. It doesn't need to be bought out with like Bitcoin and more monies or something like that too. No, that's not how this is going to work. It's just the fact that you yourself have a token piece that links that piece of media to that NFT that links it back to your token. So therefore, you have ownership as long as you have that kind of deal.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like it's really that, but nah. At this point, people are using NFTs as a way to as a money making scheme. Which, if anything,
Hmm.
I feel bad that that was like the way how people took it. But hopefully, this is a valuable lesson to everybody.
Yeah, yeah. That's just the issue with new technologies. They'll learn. You know,
Yeah,
we figured out that NFTs can be used for different things and not just as a money making scheme. So NFTs have been slowly falling out of favor as you've been seeing over the years.
yeah. Which honestly is perfectly fine. We don't necessarily even have like anything to really support it yet in the first place.
Hmm.
Like if anything, if it were the fact that cryptocurrency, it would have taken off by now too. Had it been for the fact that you see other stores that could actually accept crypto at all.
Hmm.
But that hasn't happened yet. So we'll have to wait and see, unfortunately. Um what was the thing? Is there anything else you want to talk about too, Victor?
Um,
Since I'm mostly the one bringing up the points.
that's right, bro. You the host.
Sure.
Nothing else really. I think yeah, we covered a good amount, honestly.
Yeah, and I do think too the like the way how game industry is like is it the like I've heard like or seen like a lot of messages and tweets are like oh the game industry is dying. Look at the all these AAA titles just sucking ass. I'm like, gaming industry will never go away due to the fact that we have people like us that will continuously make games just because it's going to be out of spite.
Hmm. Yeah, I think any creative endeavor from people would never die off. So
Yeah,
game development is a creative endeavor. So
yeah,
there will always be games for sure. Just like
yeah.
art, there will always be art.
Mm. Like, there will always be art. There will always be like people, because like no matter like what new technology comes around, thinking that like it's gonna wipe out like a lot of people's jobs or gonna wipe out a lot of like industries and whatnot too. It's not gonna take out the people that want to still make the change, because at the end of the day too, let's just say like me and you, we want to like give this talk to like outside of like the podcast, we've had talks about where I really wish there was one thing that like people be more educated in, but then you also have a good argument being that not everybody has access to like that education, nor does anyone want to feel educated about this at all.
Hmm.
But it's like for me, the only biggest takeaway I at least feel good about too is that I don't care if I'm talking with 100 people, if only one person can understand and internalize the messages that we say too, that's all that matters.
Yeah, bro. All it takes is just that one person.
Yeah. Because albeit good or for worse, we have the best examples, maybe like the people right now that are protesting, like actual change for once. And then there are also the bad cases too, where we have like, I don't know, Elon Musk.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is like, look, nah, I'm not gonna talk too much shit about that, just out of fear of like, please don't come after me.
It's too late, bro. They're already at your door.
Oh man, come on. But albeit though, I think we're gonna go into very interesting times, especially this upcoming like decade. Now we'll be experiencing a whole lot of shenanigans, be it from our the technology side, game industries, people, everything in the world. All we can really do is kind of just sit back and honestly enjoy the ride.
Yeah, bro. Join the ride if you can.
Yeah, join the ride when you can. That's where all the fun begins.
Yeah. Being a
But
bystander is great and all, but participating in it is the real fun.
yeah, yeah, let's riot.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. Don't. Actually, who knows? Uh, well, if anything, a lot of the other topics we'll probably save that for others because that's also like a whole ass more conversation path that we could go in.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Plenty of things. Plenty of things to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, but if anything, we're gonna probably end it a little bit early here today. Anyways, thank you all for coming in here, guys, and wish you all the goodest of evenings. Laters.
Yeah. Appreciate you all. Have a good night.